Imagine a forgotten manuscript, buried for centuries in a monastery archive, suddenly unearthed and translated. This isn't a fictional plot, it's precisely what happened with the Corpus Hermeticum. During the intellectual ferment of the Italian Renaissance, when scholars were ravenously seeking out ancient wisdom, a pivotal moment occurred. Cosimo de' Medici, the powerful ruler of Florence, heard whispers of a Greek text. This was no ordinary text. It was rumored to contain the lost knowledge of an ancient Egyptian sage. He reportedly put aside Plato to ensure its immediate translation, a testament to the immense value placed upon it. The impact was immediate and profound, shaking the foundations of European thought. This new, ancient philosophy offered a startling alternative to prevailing Christian doctrines, igniting a fervent debate. How could something so old, yet so seemingly radical, appear out of nowhere? And real quick, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos. Now let's get started. The figure at the heart of these texts is Hermes Trismegistus, a name that literally means Hermes the thrice greatest. He wasn't a single historical person, but rather a syncretic deity. A fusion of the Greek god Hermes and the Egyptian god Thoth, he represented divine wisdom, magic, and writing. This amalgamation made him uniquely positioned to be seen as an ultimate authority. He was considered a prophet, a philosopher, and even a magician, holding secrets that spanned across cultures and time. His teachings were believed to be the source of all true knowledge, predating even Moses. The respect and awe surrounding Hermes Trismegistus were immense. He wasn't just a teacher, he was believed to be an enlightened being who bridged the human and divine. But if he was so revered, where exactly did his profound wisdom supposedly originate? That leads us to the very birthplace of these mysterious texts. The intellectual cauldron where the Hermetic texts truly flourished was Hellenistic Egypt. This was a fascinating period following Alexander the Great's conquests. Alexandria, in particular, became a bustling hub where Greek and Egyptian cultures intertwined, leading to an extraordinary synthesis of ideas. Imagine a city teeming with scholars, philosophers, and mystics, all exchanging concepts and traditions. This cross-pollination created a fertile ground for new spiritual and philosophical movements to emerge. The Hermetic texts are a direct product of this unique cultural fusion, blending Greek philosophy with ancient Egyptian religious thought. They weren't born in a vacuum. They were forged in a melting pot of intellectual curiosity and spiritual yearning. This environment allowed for the development of complex ideas. But what exactly did these deeply influential texts actually contain? It's time to look inside the Corpus Hermeticum itself. The Corpus Hermeticum is not a single book, but rather a collection of 17 Greek treatises. These texts are presented as dialogues between Hermes Trismegistus and various disciples, such as Asclepius and Tat. They cover a vast range of topics, from cosmology and the nature of God to the workings of the human soul. One might expect ancient magical spells, but what you find instead is profound philosophical discourse. They discuss the creation of the universe, the spiritual ascent of humanity, and the inherent divinity within each individual. The language is often poetic and allegorical, hinting at deeper layers of meaning. Central themes include monotheism, the power of the mind, and the idea of achieving gnosis, or direct spiritual knowledge. These concepts offered a different path to understanding the divine than what was becoming orthodox at the time. This naturally raised questions, especially for the early Christian communities, which brings us to why these texts stirred such fear. For early Christians, the emergence of the Corpus Hermeticum presented a significant challenge. Here was a body of work, allegedly older than their own scriptures, offering a complex spiritual system. This was problematic, as it seemed to compete with, or even predate, the unique revelation within Christianity. The Hermetic emphasis on gnosis, or direct inner knowledge of God, could be seen as bypassing the role of Christ and the Church. It suggested a path to salvation that wasn't solely dependent on Christian doctrine. This spiritual autonomy was deeply unsettling to church authorities seeking to establish a singular, authoritative truth. Furthermore, some Hermetic ideas, like the divinity of humanity and the cyclical nature of existence, could be interpreted as heretical. They threatened the very uniqueness of Christian claims. The potential for spiritual misdirection was very real, and this fear would shape how the church reacted. Yet, not all religions viewed it with suspicion, as we will explore with Islam's unexpected connection. While early Christians often viewed Hermetic texts with suspicion, Islam's relationship was notably different. In the early centuries of Islam, scholars actively sought out and translated ancient Greek and even Coptic texts. The writings attributed to Hermes Trismegistus found a welcoming audience within the burgeoning Islamic intellectual tradition. Many Islamic scholars revered Hermes as an ancient prophet, often associating him with the Quranic figure of Idris. This connection lent significant legitimacy to Hermetic ideas within Islamic thought. He was seen as a fount of ancient wisdom, a precursor to both Moses and Muhammad. This acceptance led to the integration of Hermetic concepts into Islamic philosophy, alchemy, and mysticism. Ideas about the interconnectedness of the cosmos, the power of symbols, and the pursuit of hidden knowledge resonated deeply. But as Islam embraced these insights, a surprising shift was also happening within Christianity. Certain mystics began to defend Hermetic ideas. Despite initial apprehension, not all Christians rejected the Corpus Hermeticum outright. A select group of audacious Christian mystics and Renaissance thinkers saw profound value in its teachings. They believed that far from being a threat, Hermeticism could actually complement and deepen their understanding of Christianity. These individuals, often steeped in Neoplatonic thought, saw parallels between Hermetic cosmology and Christian theology. They argued that Hermes Trismegistus, as an ancient sage, might have received a primal revelation. This pre-Christian wisdom, they posited, could illuminate divine truths. Figures like Marsilio Ficino, the very translator who brought the Corpus to Western Europe, believed it represented an ancient theology that harmonized with Christian revelation. They bravely sought to integrate these disparate spiritual streams. However, this daring intellectual synthesis would ultimately contribute to Hermeticism being declared a heresy. The initial Renaissance excitement surrounding Hermeticism eventually gave way to suspicion and outright condemnation. As the Protestant Reformation gained momentum, the Catholic Church became increasingly rigid in its doctrines. Any deviation from established dogma was viewed as a dangerous challenge to its authority. The Hermetic texts, with their emphasis on individual gnosis and a different path to divine knowledge, clashed fundamentally with the Church's insistence on mediatory institutions and specific sacraments for salvation. Its blend of pagan and philosophical elements made it suspect. The idea of direct revelation outside of scripture and tradition was simply too radical to tolerate. By the 17th century, the perceived anachronism and philosophical independence of Hermeticism made it an easy target. It was eventually declared a heresy, signaling a powerful effort to consolidate religious authority and suppress perceived dissent. Yet despite this official condemnation, the influence of these ideas refused to truly die, resurfacing in modern occult movements. Though driven underground by religious condemnation, the flame of Hermeticism never fully extinguished. In fact, it found new life in the various esoteric and occult movements that emerged centuries later. Groups seeking alternative spiritual paths often rediscovered and embraced the Corpus Hermeticum's teachings. The 19th and 20th centuries, in particular, saw a resurgence of interest. Organizations like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, Theosophy, and Freemasonry incorporated Hermetic principles into their rituals and philosophies. They found in Hermes Trismegistus a source of ancient wisdom and esoteric knowledge, linking back to a magical, philosophical tradition. For these groups, the Hermetic texts provided a foundational worldview, a way to understand the cosmos and humanity's place within it through mystical symbols and rituals. This enduring appeal highlights the persistent human desire for secret knowledge. Yet, this very adaptation into occult circles also leads us to the fundamental philosophical debate within the corpus. The philosophy of mind versus matter. At the heart of the Corpus Hermeticum lies a profound philosophical tension, the relationship between mind and matter. The texts consistently emphasize the primacy of the divine mind, or nous, as the source of all existence. Everything in the cosmos is ultimately a manifestation of this universal intelligence. This perspective elevates human consciousness, suggesting that our individual minds are sparks of this divine nous. By purifying the mind and attaining gnosis, one can reconnect with the divine source. It asserts that true reality isn't found in the temporary physical world, but in the eternal spiritual realm. Yet there's also a deep engagement with the material world. Hermetic alchemy, for example, sought to transmute base metals not just into gold, but also to spiritually elevate the practitioner. This simultaneous reverence for the divine mind and engagement with matter, seeking to spiritualize the physical, is a powerful tension. It raises the question, what other forbidden texts might exist that echo these profound inquiries? The Corpus Hermeticum is just one example of spiritual and philosophical texts that have faced suppression or marginalization. The history of human thought is replete with forbidden texts, writings deemed too dangerous, too radical, or too heretical by dominant powers. These include various Gnostic Gospels, apocryphal books, and esoteric treatises from countless traditions. These texts often offer alternative cosmologies, different understandings of divinity, and heterodox paths to enlightenment. They challenge established narratives, providing glimpses into the diverse spiritual landscapes of the past. Their suppression speaks volumes about the historical control of information and belief. Yet, despite efforts to erase them, these forbidden texts often resurface, igniting new debates and inspiring fresh interpretations. The very act of forbidding them only amplifies their mystique and allure. This leads us to a crucial question regarding the Corpus Hermeticum itself. How do we ascertain the authenticity and original meaning of such ancient, rediscovered works? This is the crisis of authenticity. The discovery and subsequent influence of the Corpus Hermeticum brought with it a significant crisis of authenticity. When these texts first appeared in the Renaissance, they were believed by many to be direct revelations from an ancient Egyptian sage, a source of primal, uncorrupted wisdom. This perceived antiquity lent them immense authority and immediate respect. However, later scholarship began to challenge this assumption. Linguistic and philosophical analyses eventually revealed that the texts were not ancient Egyptian writings at all. Instead, they were products of the Hellenistic period, written in Greek during the early centuries CE, blending Egyptian religious ideas with Greek philosophy. This realization fundamentally shifted the text's standing. They were no longer seen as primordial wisdom, but rather as a fascinating synthesis from a specific historical context. This re-evaluation changed how they were understood and interpreted. This ongoing debate about the true age and authorship highlights the constant challenge of interpreting ancient documents, which also applies to understanding the rich symbolism in the Corpus Hermeticum. The Corpus Hermeticum is absolutely brimming with rich, multifaceted symbolism. Unlike straightforward narratives, these texts often communicate profound spiritual truths through allegorical language and cryptic imagery. The cosmos itself is described in symbolic terms, from the Divine Father or nous to the material world below. Key symbols include light and darkness, representing understanding and ignorance, or the process of spiritual awakening. The human soul is often depicted as a fallen fragment of the divine, seeking reascent through knowledge. Even the act of creation is described symbolically, not as a historical event, but a continuous process. This reliance on symbolism meant the texts required deep contemplation and interpretation. They weren't meant for casual reading, but for profound engagement. Understanding these symbols is paramount to unlocking their deeper meanings. But ultimately, for us today, the question remains, is this ancient insight or just spiritual misdirection? The Corpus Hermeticum continues to provoke debate. Does it offer genuine ancient insight, or is it a pathway to spiritual misdirection? For some, these texts provide timeless wisdom. They see universal truths about the nature of God, the cosmos, and the human soul that transcend their historical context. They find guidance for personal spiritual growth and a deeper connection to the divine. Others view them with caution, seeing potential for misdirection. They point to the text's syncretic nature and eventual integration into occult philosophies as problematic. The emphasis on gnosis, or direct illumination, can be interpreted as bypassing established spiritual traditions, leading individuals down unverified paths. Both perspectives hold valid points. The texts undeniably influenced Western thought and continue to inspire diverse spiritual seekers. But knowing how to discern insight from elaborate illusion is a task for each individual inquirer. This brings us to the ultimate question: why does this ancient collection of texts still matter in our modern world? The enduring legacy of the Corpus Hermeticum is a testament to humanity's persistent quest for meaning and understanding. It matters because it represents a powerful alternative spiritual tradition that significantly shaped Western thought, even when it was suppressed. Its influence can be traced through the Renaissance, the Enlightenment, and into modern esoteric movements. Moreover, these texts force us to confront fundamental questions about the nature of reality, the human mind, and our relationship to the divine. They challenge us to look beyond conventional narratives and consider diverse paths to wisdom. In a world often dominated by singular viewpoints, Hermeticism offers a rich and complex counter-narrative. Ultimately, the Corpus Hermeticum continues to matter because it invites us into a deeper intellectual and spiritual journey. Its history, its philosophy, and its struggles for authenticity all speak to the ongoing human endeavor to uncover truth. It compels us to consider the profound weight and lasting impact of ancient words. Make sure to subscribe for more religious videos and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new video. We'll see you in the next one.